All right, here we go. Today we have one of the greatest soul music singers and songwriters of all time. The man who wrote over 4,000 songs, including timeless classics like The Tracks of My Tears, Cruisin', Tears of a Clown, My Girl, Being With You, and hundreds more. Grammy Award winner, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame member, musical icon and legend on every level. Smokey Robinson, we're truly honored to welcome you to Vlad TV.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
Well, it's our first time here. I'm a huge, long-time fan.
Bless you.
Thank you. So I want to start in the very beginning. So you grew up in Detroit.
I grew up in Detroit, that's for sure. Yeah.
Okay. And your father had a very interesting story.
Yeah, my father had a very interesting story, in fact, because he had run away from home when he was 12 years old. He was born in Selma, Alabama in 1896. And he ran away from home when he was 12 years old and never talked to or saw anyone in his family from that day forward.
Well, the reason he ran away at 12 years old was because he had stabbed a white kid that was trying to bully him.
Yeah, this white boy. My dad was, like I said, he was 12 years old when he ran away, so the stabbing didn't happen until he was 12. But since he was 10, he had a paper out. A guy in city had a bunch of the young black boys delivering papers to the barber shops and the stores and the this and the that and so on. And he made something like about 53 cents a week, I think, a month. And, from the time he was 10 years old, this white boy who was about, when he was 10, because the boy was 17 when my dad was 12, so he was about 15, and he'd just take my dad's money every time he got paid. And my dad wouldn't tell his brothers because my dad was the youngest of 9 siblings, and he had some older brothers. But he figured if he told them they did something to the boy, then the white people were going to come to his house and kill everybody in there, so he never told them. And so when he was 12 years old, he said he just got tired of it. And one day he saw a Boy Scout knife for 2 cents, and he bought it. It had the can opener and the this and the blade and so on and so forth and so forth. And that month when he got paid, the boy came to take his money again. And he said, "I'm not giving you my money." And the boy slapped him down. So he just jumped up and stabbed him in the legs. And the boy started screaming and crying and all that. So he ran, and he said he was going to go home, but he thought about it. And I don't know how he thought about this at 12 years old, but he said he thought about it. He said, if I go home, they'll come and find me and kill everybody in my family. So he went to the railroad track, and he got on a freighter and never looked back.
At 12 years old, he went from Alabama to Detroit.
No, he didn't go straight to Detroit.
Well, where'd he go?
He went to a lot of places in between. He just grew up on freight trains and stuff like that with some other hobo guys and like that, And so he said he didn't settle down until he was 19, and that was in Cleveland. His first settlement for a permanent place to stay was actually Cleveland, Ohio. But when I was a kid, when he first told me that story, I felt really bad for him, and I felt, gosh, that's a terrible thing to have to go through, which it was, But after I got grown, who I really felt sorry for was my grandmother. I can imagine that. Her baby, like I said, he was the youngest of 9 siblings. He leaves the house one day in Selma, Alabama in, 1906, and she never sees him or hear from him again. So I can imagine what she must have been thinking. It had to be really, really, really rough on her.
Okay, but in your family, there was 11 kids?
No, there was 11 kids for me because after my mom passed when I was 10. There was only 3 of us. I had 2 older sisters.
Okay.
And my oldest sister was 17 when I was born, and my youngest sister was 14 when I was born. So my mom passed when I was 10. And then my oldest sister, who had 6 kids of her own by that time, came back to live in the house. And she ended up having 10 kids. So that's how my nieces and nephews are actually like my brothers and sisters. And there were 11 of us.
Okay, so here you are growing up with all these kids essentially in the ghetto.
Essentially. Actually.
Yeah.
Actually in the ghetto, in the hood.
Right. And your mom has passed away, your dad is still around, and your sister has now brought her kids over. So you have all these kids in a house trying to scrape by, essentially. What do you think was, I mean, you're a kid, so you don't really realize how bad things are. But in retrospect, what do you think was the worst things that you went through during that time?
Oh gosh, I really don't know, man, because I tell people all the time, there were a bunch of us. There were, 11 kids in a house as small as our house was. I slept with two of my nephews in a little bed. It was about as big a size as a twin bed. So we were all piled up there and everything, but we didn't know we were poor, man, because everybody in the neighborhood was under those same conditions. So I didn't realize I was poor until I moved out of there. After I started singing and moved away, then I recognized the fact of the poverty that I'd grown up in, but it wasn't really bad because we had love and we loved each other and we had a great family love and we had a great family tie. And, so we weren't thinking about how poor we were because everybody was like that. But when I look back on it retrospectively, we were poor. We had nothing, and we never locked our doors or windows, and nobody in the neighborhood, because if somebody was going to break in our house, they better be bringing something, 'cause there was
A house full of
nothing to
people.
take. Yeah, there was nothing to take. That's for sure.